Will you look at court reform again?
Well, I did look at here's two things. Before I got elected, while I put together a group of constitutional scholars to try to expand the court, which I think is a mistake after all, the judgment was that didn't make sense because it can become so politicized in the future. But so what I've done is in my appointments, I've appointed 136 judges and found ourselves in a situation where I picked people who are from various backgrounds. We've appointed more women to the appellate courts, black women to the appellate courts than every other president in American history. Not just Ketanji Brown, but more than any across the board. We've also, I wanted to make sure that we had on the court, and Republicans have been appointed to the court by us as well. On the court, want to have public defenders, people who've been on the other side of the equation, so that everyone is represented. There's a point of view to be able to be made, but I have no hard test to say you must have this view. I never ask a nominee what's their position on A, B, C, or D.
No litmus test.
No litmus test.
Do you worry that without court reform, this conservative majority is too young and too conservative, that they might do too much harm?
Well, I think they may do too much harm. But I think if we start the process of trying to expand the court, we're going to politicize it maybe forever in a way that is not healthy.
That you can't get back.
That you can't get back. And I think maybe it's just the optimist in me. I think that some of the court are beginning to realize their legitimacy is being questioned in ways that hadn't been questioned in the past. And I think there's a concern on maybe even the Chief Justice, that maybe we better.
Well, in the independent legislature's decision, it looks like maybe Roberts had that in mind.
I don't know.
I don't either. But you could.
Oh yeah, no,
the
we're
optimist
in a great place.
could hope so, right?
Hope so.
What's going on? I mean, that was a very uplifting piece of video we just played. I'm in a better mood already. I thought it was going to be all doom and gloom tonight, and that really picked me up. I feel a lot better about where. I mean, maybe that's true. Maybe they are starting to realize that their legitimacy, is on the line, and I think we got them right where we want them. I think we're in a really good place.
The problem with this administration is they just are not going out there and telling people about everything they've accomplished for us.
Yeah, they
people
don't know
just
how to sell
know
themselves.
how good they have it.
Right.
All right. So now he's letting people know. I hope he continues with that.
How dare you say you're struggling in this economy? What are you, a right-wing plant? What are you, a Republican? That's the strategy of the Democratic Party. They gaslight people into thinking the economy is good. And I'll look at that answer. Look at that answer. That's why this situation with the Supreme Court is very interesting. Because do you guys remember when liberals said they was going to burn shit down and they're going to hit the street when Roe v. Wade was overturned? Mm-hmm. Now you got affirmative action overturned. You had student debt relief overturned. Crickets. So I find it very interesting because we are seeing the limits of liberal bourgeoisie politics.
The moths got into the pussy hats.
Yeah, that's probably what happened. Like a lot of them, again, I keep on saying this, but a lot of those social justice warriors, these people who would say they're going to resist Trump and we're going to fight against fascism, they were saying nothing but words. All the people, I'm looking for them now. Where are the lines of people protesting in the streets? Where are you? Oh, that's right, you're at brunch. Or, I don't want to be a disturbance.
And they won't leave if Roe v. Wade is overturned. And now this is Joe Biden being asked about the Supreme Court and the extreme right-wing shifts of the Supreme Court, and the fact that they overturned Roe v. Wade, they overturned student debt relief, they have all these horrific rulings, right? So Joe Biden's response to that is, I ain't about to do shit, because if I do shit, it'll be politicized, because it's not politicized now. So they're not even doing the shit that liberals want them to do. And you guys see the handicap of liberal ideology, because liberals are obsessed with institutions. So
he told what's her name, Wallace there, he told her that he's appointed a lot of black women to the lower courts. And that is an answer that is satisfactory to the MSNBC audience, many of whom either don't have student debt or are able to keep up with payments just fine. whether there is broad-based affirmative action is really not an issue to them. They're set, right? Like, he gave the kind of answer that audience just eats up, because these people have nothing at stake at the end of the day. And so that's why he's able to say that. And then, well, yeah, that's true. There's no affirmative action in America, but he practices affirmative action. He gives black women all these appointments, right? So that's good enough for us. I mean, that's the argument he's making there. And look, it doesn't work on most people, but for whoever's brain dead enough to watch that fucking shit, Nicolle Wallace at 4 PM, I mean, they're already half drunk and hopped up on Chardonnay and Xanax by then. They eat it up.
Hey, stop being mean. They have feelings. After all, look, I am just once again not surprised by the fact that, again, the Democrats are allowed to get away with this. It's quite shocking to me, because if this was a Republican president, if this was Trump, the media would be having a field day. Everyone would say this man is a tyrant. He doesn't care about the people. But what everyone has to realize is that Joe Biden has never been on the side of the people. He has a clear political track record of being on the wrong side of history. Bernie Sanders, your good friend. Biden, that's your good friend. Joe Biden, those are words that I'm going to forever haunt you with. Your friend, Joe Biden, was against all the things, even a woman's right to choose, way back when he was still in his prime being a scumbag. So Roe v. Wade being overturned, student debt forgiveness not being taken care of, affirmative action disappearing. Old school Joe Biden would say, oh, it's about time. That crap was going on for far too long. And that's the truth about Joe Biden. He was looking forward for something like this to happen. And of course, he wasn't going to lift a finger, because he doesn't give a damn.
Does he actually know what's happening? That's really
Probably
my
not.
question. with
No,
it.
Probably
no.
not.
Do you guys see the Democrats still using the Supreme Court as a reason to vote for their warmongering, imperialist, corrupt party?
Expand the court.
In the interview response, you see that Biden has no plan to fix all these liberal problems of you guys.
No.
So how do you guys keep using Supreme Court as a wedge issue to hit the voters over? So they would say, oh my God, the Republicans overturned Roe v. Wade. Oh my God, the Republicans struck down affirmative action. We need rally and support Democrats. Why? The shit's already done.
Well, we talked on our show a little bit last night about how part of the reason why all these issues are in the court's hands in the first place is because of the Democrats' unwillingness to do anything legislatively over the past several decades. Like, there's no reason we should be waiting with bated breath on court rulings to decide policies like abortion rights, affirmative action, student debt forgiveness. All of this can be done through actual politics if the Democrats actually did politics.
Yeah,
but they don't, and so now we have to. The court screwed us. Oh well,
Well, actually, correction, because real quick, the reason why Democrats can't do anything or they won't do anything is because the key word is fundraising. They need to have fear and fundraising so that enough brain dead liberals will say we got to vote for Democrats because they promise they'll do it. They sound like an abusive, housewife saying, "Oh, maybe this if I make things right, maybe my husband won't deck me in the jaw." That's how liberals think, and that's why now we got to vote Democrat because the Democrats might follow through. They won't. It's just fundraising and fear mongering. That's it.
Yeah, of course.
Well, Obama ran on codifying Roe v. Wade. He had a supermajority. He could have done it. But that would cost them that issue. So they didn't want to do it. Then his second term, they asked him, "What are you going to do?" Well, we got other things we have to take care of right now.
That's not how you do Obama's voice. It's like this. Look, Roe v. Wade. Just
I stand behind my Obama.
People have a vote. Who's Obama's better?
Yeah.
We're going
to Nick's point. But to Nick's point, this like all of these things sort of culminating to me. All of these sort of things, big, world politics, geopolitics changing sort of things happening, and these sort of things happening at the same time. I don't see that as a coincidence. This is a product of neoliberalism sort of eating itself. This is a product of capitalism sort of eating itself, coming home to roost, as Malcolm X said. But it's like, this is why it's so hard for progressive Democrats to sell themselves now. It's like, what do you mean? What are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, what can your politics do for the Democratic Party? Do you see what they're doing and what they're not doing? And let's talk about that part. the extent, this is what we've been preaching, working class has been preaching. The extent of bourgeoisie politics will never get, they'll never have a strategy that puts them anything they want in danger. You see, like, what does it take, Joe Biden, for you to finally say, I'm going to expand the court? Now, I got a take on expanding court, but if that's your solution, like, what is the line? What is the line that needs to be crossed for you to say, let's vote the filibuster off? Is it people being murdered on the street, like on TV what does it take is the question, and it's never enough. And this is the extent of bourgeoisie politics could never accomplish what we need to have accomplished. And this is the point of what RBN and HardLens Media and Dissidence has been preaching, and why we are post-duopoly. This shit is not working. This shit is not going to work. We can't elect 4 or 5 good people and put them in a cesspool of just maggots and expect them to be good people in a couple of years, i.e. AOC, Jamal Bowman, just name all of them. This is just, but it is allowing channels like us and allowing people like us to be able to have this sales pitch and saying, this is why you should be exiting this shit, and this is what we need to be doing, because this is clearly this is like us having the ace. Like, what can they say? It's like, we got so many things we could, like, look, Ukraine, and we just have austerity. What you got to say to that card right there? Like, what could they say? So this is our opportunity, socialist, Marxist, communist, or whatever anarchist, whatever you describe yourself. We need to be talking to working class, the Trump countries. This is why the Cornel West campaign at this particular moment is so vital. It's so vital that we have this. Otherwise, it will be a vacuum for something else to happen. It's so important that the Cornel West campaign, keeps its liveliness and just start pulling people. Trump country, wherever it's at. Sorry, I went long, guys.
No, that's fine.
I'm sorry, Kate, go ahead.
Well, one thing I'm looking forward to is seeing the same track record of, we got to support the Democratic nominee because Trump, or vote blue no matter who. I mean, they did this not once, but twice, 2016 and 2020. Do you have any idea how played out it is and how much political ammunition is in our favor now? Because not only can we call out the Democrats' hypocrisy from what they did during Trump's administration, but also the Democrats' laziness and them being unwilling to even lift a finger to fight for any progressive policy. We have the ball in our court. It is time for us to go ahead and do that slam dunk and obliterate these liberal jagoffs who for years kept talking down to people like us. We have not only been proven factually correct, but been consistent on the issues and calling out the problems of the two-party system. Now, it's easy for us to talk about Republicans and them being jagoff politicians. That's fine. That's easy to do. Go watch TYT if you want to watch people dunk on Republicans. However, it is important to be just as critical.
No, she's switching up now. Yeah, she's switching up.
Oh, really?
Saw that coming to mind.
Yeah. I never saw that, but okay. And
it just came out yesterday.
Yeah, hot off the press.
It just came out yesterday. An interview she did. But go ahead.
Wow.
Go ahead, Kid.
Final thought is just holding the Democrats accountable. Anyone that's going to be coming at us now is RFK Jr. is a problem, or the libertarians will be a problem. Dr. Cornel West is going to be a problem. Okay, and why should I support the establishment jagoff system? Because I'm not going to do that. I'm going to vote independent and third party. I'm not going to be supporting this ridiculous two-party system. So screw you and your talking points, because we have everything in our favor and they don't, and this is a win for us.
Well, the problem, as CJ was saying, how this is really the inevitable result of capitalism eating itself, neoliberalism eating itself. When you have a rapaciousness as out of control as it is in our society, going back hundreds of years, but if we're going to speak in terms of a modern context, especially just ramped up since the end of the Cold War, where capitalism was just unleashed upon the world with no ideological competitor on the world stage. Once that rapaciousness is allowed to just fester and fester and fester, the powers that be feel no need to prove themselves of use to the people. And so they turn on the people. And if the people are not willing to keep them in check the way they do and say, oh, I don't know, France. Right? Then they get the feeling that they can do whatever the hell they want because the people have no real check on them. And so what they use to enforce that are culture war issues, is polarization. And once polarization runs rampant, then the courts become nothing more than a political arm of the majority party. And that's how you get a Supreme Court that we can now predict how they're going to rule in 90% of cases, right? Because that judicial branch was set up to be a check on partisanship. But once partisanship gets so out of control, that partisan process of electing politicians, that determines who those judges are, right? So then the judicial branch loses its function. And now all it serves is a permanent enforcement mechanism of whoever happens to be in power when an old justice dies and they get to pick a new one. And once the Republicans get as many picks as they have, now that's it. We're stuck. So if you don't expand the court, then you cannot solve this problem by any means that the system allows for. You have to take your cues from certain European countries, shall we say.
And that's as much as we're going to say because we don't want these guys to get another strike.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Well, you guys want to read your tweet since you were just talking about expanding the court? I'll let one of you.
Sure thing. So I tweeted out, anyone saying expand the court is gaslighting you. This is what Rashida Tlaib tweeted out as these rulings came down. It's what Ayanna Pressley said to our mutual friend, of course, Colin Radix Carter, when he confronted them at that Justice Democrats meeting. Nothing stopping Biden from canceling debt right now using the Higher Education Act. Unless and until he does so, everyone should assume his initial action was a cynical pre-election ploy designed to fail at SCOTUS. So that's how I feel because we cannot expand. There's not the political will in the Senate now to expand the court. Biden doesn't even want to expand the court. So that's not happening. Now, if you expand the court, you would essentially break the court because you would make it a completely partisan thing, right, who's on and who's off. Right. But my point in that whole monologue I just gave you there was that it's already a partisan thing. And it's, of course, a partisan thing because we are such a polarized country. We're such a polarized country because elites don't feel any responsibility to remain in good standing with we the people, right? So the whole constitutional premise just breaks down at that point, and that's where we are. And so, expanding the court would be a Band-Aid right now. But of course, in 2 years, when Trump is likely to be back in office or whoever it is, they can just expand it on top of that. And it's just a back and forth, much in the same way that midterm elections are the back and forth, right? It would just become an extension of that. And so anybody touting this as a serious solution is gaslighting you. The pressure right now has to be on Joe Biden. Debt Collective, right? That group, they had 2 organizing calls that day. I sat in on one of them. I didn't get to talk because it was too crowded. But if you're one of these activist groups, right, organizing around student debt cancellation, you need to be saying one thing and one thing only right now, which is that you are boycotting the Democratic Party until another executive action is signed canceling student debt under the Higher Education Act 1965, period. If you are even entertaining the idea of pulling the lever for any Democrat anywhere, then you are not serious about making this happen because, as I tweeted there, they can make it happen now if they wanted to. Just sign on the dotted line.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And the thing
go ahead.
And the thing is too, I again, because I've seen a lot of these activist groups under Trump, and again, all of them kept on saying how they're going to resist and fight. A lot of them are not serious. All of them have disappeared. They have disappeared into the ether, and they're slowly coming back. But I urge anyone, especially if they want to get involved in this kind of environment, know the difference between people who are consistent and those who operate through bad faith and propaganda of the Democratic Party. They are out there, and there are people who are going to be trying to pluck at people's feelings because, Donald Trump triggers them, and there's a fear of another Trump presidency. Don't let fear overwhelm you because it is something that will, again, you'll be regretting for the rest of your life. I've seen these people, and it is just downright pathetic now looking back at previous interviews at just how not just pathetic they are, but lackluster, mediocre. None of them were ever serious about fighting. It's going to be the dauntless few that want to step up and do something.
I think at this point, I've seen it with the last few election cycles palpably change, because with Hillary, some people would have walked through glass for Hillary. They loved Hillary. By the time you get to Biden, we got to stop Trump and we're in a pandemic, right? Now they don't even talk about Biden and there's no pandemic. I mean, it's just some vague noises about fascism. They're really down to the hardest core, vote blue no matter who people. That's why Cornell immediately. I mean, look, let's step outside for a second. Cornell West, this is not like a mainstream figure. This cat gets 6% right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
RFK Jr. gets like 20% out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
That's and you know, we've made clear what we think about RFK running in the Democratic Party, but nonetheless, it does tell you something about how the elite political class of Democrats and the elite class of society, they've just so lost the people, even on the more institutionally inclined left, that this election, they're going to come for us. They're going to be blaming independent media, because they just cannot look themselves in the mirror and see themselves as the Louis XIV court. They cannot see themselves as a despised aristocracy. They cannot imagine why they've lost the love of the people. It's because the people are ignorant, right? How do we, there is nothing more stomach-churningly smug than to hear these people talk about how the voters need to be educated because they just don't realize what a good job we're doing.
That means that you're deciding to base your decisions on your life, what the results of politics, and they're saying don't do that. We just believe what we tell you. But let me read this tweet. This is Nina Turner, and I'm not doing this to let's take shots at Nina Turner, because she was one of the more prominent voices on Twitter that I saw getting the most feedback, and she had the most tweets on this. So I did want to use her as an example to help us discuss this. And the quote is, we can't, so she tweeted out, she's been tweeting, expand the court. And she's been getting these replies. So she's been doing sort of responding tweets, answering some of these pushbacks. So this is one of them. We can't expand the court because conservatives will expand it and pack it when they have power. What do we have now if not a conservative court that was packed? That's what you were kind of alluding to, Keaton. But what I wanted to say about expanding the court, we still have the same people putting the same awful people nominated
Right.
them. So I don't see, you know what I mean? Like what would be the difference? And the thing is, this is the shortcut that the professional managerial class wants to do instead of hitting the streets and doing the work. Instead of that, let's do this. And my last thing that I want to get to is this part. How in the hell can Nina Turner sell progressive Democrats at this point? Through her tweets, without saying it, it's almost like she's saying, I'm done with the damn Democratic Party. It's like she's not saying that, but through what she's saying in her tweets, it's almost like she's alluding to that. So how can anybody at this point, is what I'm saying, how can you sell yourself as a progressive? Because people are saying, have you been watching what the Democrats have been? Have you been watching what the NATO left, the progressives have been voting for? The ones we're sending to these anti-war people, all of a sudden they're voting all these billions of dollars to Ukraine. So that is my sort of thing I want to present to Nick, and then the rest of you can answer. How can this, take yourself out of it is what I'm asking. They can't sell it on us. But the person who was eating this up 6 months ago, how in the hell can you at this point sell this? Because the Democrats are literally, with abortion, with and when we skipped over gay rights, remember gay marriage rights, there was another thing that's kind of hovering underneath all of this because of student debt. A lot of, and then affirmative action. And all they're saying is, we can't, This is gonna be tough, guys. You get what I'm saying? That's all they got. That's all they got. Is just damn. This is gonna be tough with no fight. What do we to? These are the people that's supposed to be helping us, and all they have is what? What do they have? They're taking away our rights, and they're not doing anything. Go ahead, Nick.
Now, to answer your question about how they can continue to sell to progressives, this is what they have. So,
what I really loved was her Roe decision manicure. That was probably her best bit, where she talked about how she was going to have a manicure in protest of the Roe v. Wade decision.
Guys, she got to affirm herself. You know what I mean? She got to do some positive affirmation. That's what she was saying earlier. But now this is I'm pulling this up to answer your question, CJ. What else do they have? What they abandoned the left. They know they lost the RBNs. They know lost the HardLens media, the Black Power media, the do Dissidence. So they going for the most basic bitch audience that you can possibly find.
Jesus.
No, look, I mean, it's funny you brought that up, Nick, because I mean, this is obviously comic example of what you're talking about. But really, what is the difference between AOC posing in her yoga suit, whatever that is? I don't do yoga, as you can tell. I don't know what it's called. Yoga, yoga.
I want Lena Dunham to jump on there and be like, "You're culturally appropriating yoga."
That's the thing. I don't know what to call it. Yoga suit, right? Yoga apparel, whatever. What is really the difference between her going to a yoga meet and, Jacobin publishing, 6 articles about what the Democrats should do, right? If you notice, so many Jacobin headlines are, Joe Biden should use the Higher Education Act. Democrats should do this, should do that. Like, what is really the difference? Exactly. What is the difference between going to yoga and going to a fucking DSA meeting? It's all just masturbation. It really is. It's masturbation from people who can afford to jerk off while other people's student debt piles up. And look, I mean, we've interviewed a lot of Jacobin writers for our show. We haven't interviewed them for a while because I think the magazine has really gone downhill in recent months. Yeah. So, I don't mean any malice by this, but at a certain point, it's like, listen, if you guys are still hedging and you're still talking about, well, in a swing state, vote this way, in a safe state, vote this, I mean, come on. At a certain point, this is not serious. It all may as well be going to yoga. It's just a social club at that point. DSA might as well be a social club right now. Nationally. I'm not saying there aren't certain chapters that do good work. My local chapter in the Hudson Valley, not that I was a member, but that chapter did some good. They beat back
what's their position on clapping?
Yeah, well, I think they're. I don't know. I never knew that. But they stopped a fracked gas plant from opening in the year. I'm not saying that no DSA chapters do good work anywhere, but I'm saying, as a brand, as a whole, it's a dead project. Just like this is a dead project. They may as well be at yoga with AOC.
We all
now
have
I pull this up to and Kate, I'll pass right to you, bro. Yeah. I'll pass right to you. But I pull this up to answer CJ's question. Right? Who else do they have? The only people they have left are the simps who are looking forward to these pictures, and the teenage girls that like AOC slay queen because she knows she lost the left when they vote for the Ukraine war. When now they endorsing Joe Biden, they're not doing anything to fight for leftist goals. So it's just nothing but virtual signal bullshit like this on social media. And to be clear, I have no problem with you doing these yoga selfies, but you better be fine for the working class while you're doing it. This is her main appeal, though. This is the thing she's trying to sell because she has no other substance. But sorry, Kay, I want to get you in here, brother.
No, it's looking at this, I have to thank Kyle and Jank for giving us this abomination and failure of the progressive movement. Thank you, Jank and Kyle, for the creation of the Justice Democrats, an organization that eventually kicked you two out and gave us AOC. I mean, these two guys, Jank and Kyle, along with whoever was there to make Justice Democrats, when they hired up people like AOC and whoever else eventually won their Justice Democrat nomination, they never had a contract with them to make sure, like, hey, that they would still have influence in Washington, D.C. So in order to make sure the AOC wouldn't go her own way, they never put in these safeguards for the potential of these candidates maybe going again and falling in line. There was never that afterthought. Perhaps maybe Cenk had the audacity of thinking that these were all good people. But at the earlier point, you can't put 5 good people in a sea of maggots and expect them to be good, because they're going to get corrupt. So now we're down with AOC posting quasi OnlyFans videos or pictures. Well, that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. It looks like something you see from an OnlyFans.
That's our Lululemon influencer ad.
I mean, come on. I mean, that's the only way I could look at it. AOC doing her OnlyFans, or we all want to date her or something like that. I don't know.
But this is all proving that the Democratic Party will not fight for you. That's why I say, like, this is terrible what's happening, but is opening up the opportunity for really people to say, this party's not really here to help us, because think about the number of rights that literally has been taken away. In 4 months? I can't remember. Has the abortion really been that long? However long, maybe let's just give it a year.
Yeah, it was. I think in summer.
Oh yeah, they just had the anniversary. Yeah, they just had the anniversary. So just imagine that all the rights have been taken away in the matter of 12 months. Abortion rights, gay marriage rights with the ruling with the website maker, affirmative action, and I'm missing one. I just had student loan debt. So 4 major things have been ripped away from you, and the bourgeoisie and the professional managerial class is still just kind of go, all right, guys, we're going to go ahead and donate to the AOC. Like, they're just going like business as usual. This is showing you they're never going to fight for you. Like what has to be, can you describe a worse dynamic than now that will actually make Democrats go, you know what? Damn the filibuster. Let's give these rights back. Like, what could that be? I can't even imagine what that would be other than outright, I don't even know, slavery. They might not even do it for that. They'll be like, oh, that's slavery. They brought it back. But, this filibuster. Come on, guys. You can't pack the court.
For most people, their politics are not politics. It's signaling cultural affinity for a certain class of people and the ideas that they promulgate. That's why I know you all don't get too into culture war stuff. I'm not gonna break up the meeting or anything, but in my opinion, there have been a lot of culture war things that you see people. This has been the ultimate social experiment to me, because there have been a lot of ideas that have been mainstreamed that if you told somebody 5 years ago you're going to support this, they would have punched you in the mouth for even saying that you'll get behind this, right? It showed to what extent, as long as the right people with the right cultural capital tell them that this is what they're supposed to signal, they'll go along with pretty much anything, almost anything. That's the underlying thing that people don't like to confront about societies that have committed atrocities like Nazi Germany. There, but for the grace of God, go you. If you had been there at that time, I think it was Bill Burr who said, people walk around saying, I wonder what I would be doing in slavery times. Exactly what you're doing right now. Nothing. Right. You're doing nothing now because they're slaves now. You're doing nothing now, right? So you would have been doing nothing then. This is something people don't like to face about themselves. Yeah. I actually think it's a big part of why they've gotten so excited about litigating people who have been dead for hundreds of years, because it allows them to deflect their own guilt for the atrocities of their own time onto past figures, rather than to examine their own historical moment and their complicity in it.
I think that's true to a large extent, but I think even within the more, progressive or socialist aligned circles, organizations like DSA, Our Revolution, Justice Democrats, right? Once you convince yourself that this is and must be a long game of electing 220 AOCs so that you can literally rule the House, right? You have at that point not just convinced yourself that slow and steady progress is possible, but you've also created a life for yourself Now this is what you do, right? If you're 30 and you get in the game of electing progressive Democrats, you're very comfortable with making it your life's work to just go one by one, district by district. We'll fund primaries here, primaries there. We'll win some, great. We'll lose some. Oh, try next time. Next thing you know, you're 65, Social Security kicks in, you got a 401k, and you're good, right? This just becomes the thing that you do, right? And I think that's a big problem, right? Because a revolution is not a long-term plan, right? Because no one really knows what comes after the revolution, right? It's not cushy, right? It's not comfortable. Whereas, heading an organization like Justice Democrats, building a little board around you, right? That has air conditioning, right? You get office space for that. You get the coffee on the way in, you pick up dinner on the way home. It's a life. A revolution, you do what they're doing in France. They don't know what tomorrow brings, right? And that is very, very scary to a lot of these people who get professionally invested in these long-term projects, even ones that we would be more sympathetic to as like economic leftists.
Now, that's why the progressives, they became the biggest incrementalists in Congress.
Exactly.
They became the exact same kind of liberals that we meant to fight, because they went from being saying, for example, they would say stuff that like, oh my God, the climate crisis, we got to do something right now. They went from that to now endorsing the guy who was banning the Willow Project.
Right.
So you got to see the role that they play. They're not just people who the best among us trying their best. They play in a very particular role, dragging any sort of outside left movement to the right and get them to accept incrementalism. Now we're supposed to be saying, we went from fighting for Medicare for all, fighting for climate justice. Now AOC saying, no, we get Medicare for all when I have children. Maybe in a few decades we have Medicare for all. They became the biggest incrementalists. They went from saying we have 3 to 5 years to fix the planet with climate change, and to endorse Joe Biden because that's the best chance we have to get fucking crumbs of our platform, which actually is gaslighting because that's not true. But their job is to gaslight. They get their job to shift the movement to the right to accept the Democratic Party. They are propagandists and sheepdogs of the highest order, and they must be called out. You see, a lot of people like ignore them because they're like, I don't want to drag AOC in them. I don't want to drag. No, you have to, because they're playing a very particular psyop on the working class.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially now. I mean, nothing could, paint a clearer picture of that than the fact that now Cornel West is in the race. They were all touring the country with Cornel West 3 years ago on the Sanders campaign. They were doing events with Cornel West. They were simpatico with Cornel West. Now he's in the race, and you are all in for the guy who kneecapped the Sanders campaign 3 years ago when Cornel's in the race now. He's running now.
Because they never believed in it. They never believed in any of it. Even Bernie. Even Bernie never believed in his message.
Right. I mean, not to that extent, of course.
Yeah, and Bernie and Dr. Cornel West are real life friends. And Bernie said, fuck that shit. I'm throwing my friend right under the bus to endorse my friend Jim Crow Joe. He just said right to the movement, fuck you.
Right.
He said right to the movement, fuck you.
It's a tremendous amount of pressure that these people face to give in, because if you go through door number one, you get to be rich, you get to be famous, you get to talk a little shit on The View, right? Oh, did you know that 3 billionaires have this much money? You get to do that. You get to chair a committee, right? You go through door number two, they're going to nadir you. They're going to Sarandon you. That's it. All the riches, all the accolades go away. Now you're public enemy number one, right? So which door do you decide to go through? For most people, it is much easier, almost irresistible, to say, you know what? I can do a lot more good if I go through door number one, because then I'm on the inside. They don't tell themselves, well, I'm doing it because I can't deal with everything that comes with door number two. They tell them that's the best thing for their mission, right? But it just so happens to be the best thing for themselves.
Now, we always bring up Ralph Nader and Jill Stein and Susan Sarandon, but they don't even want to be Nina Turner, because Nina Turner is still a loyal Democrat, but she said a few things that really irked them. Like she did campaign events with Jill Stein. She said voting for Joe Biden like eating a bowl of shit. And those things permanently put her on the DNC
Right.
shit list, even with our criticism of Nina Turner. If you look at even on Twitter, she's constantly being derailed by Democrat Hillary shit lists because she had the nerve to harshly criticize Hillary Clinton. We know now that it's bullshit, but she had fake support to third parties. A lot of people forget that she spoke at the People's Party convention.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that.
People
Yeah,
thought
so
she was
used to
going to
have
run.
fake.
She
So
did
she
that
used to have
hello
fake-
somebody speech. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Russell. And she used to have fake towards like supporting third party and more radical left ideas, which is why we drag her because she since abandoned those talking points and principles. But not even just Ralph Nader and Jill Stein and Susan Sarandon, they don't want to be her. And that's why it's so pathetic what Nina Turner become, because she's openly despised by the Democratic Party. Like, I mean, like openly. And it's still confusing to me because she's trying her best to get back on their good graces. But they like, no, once you fuck with us, you're never, ever forgiven. And Nina is hated by the Democratic Party. I think anyone is honest that can admit that. And so that's why when we see AOC, Cory Bush, and we see Maxwell Frost and the new progressives who can't wait to sell out, they're like, nigga, we don't want to be Nina
Oh
Turner.
God, this one.
They'd
I
like
saw
her
this
better if she
video.
became
Oh
a
my God.
Republican and then started appearing on MSNBC.